Okay, everybody. Hey, listen, we're here at my facility, Gable Enterprises, and we're just wanted to point out and give an informational video for what's going on with a Scout flats fishing boat that we have here. If you can pan over, it's a Bay Scout 201. It was built, come on over this way, sweetie. All right, so we think it was built in 9 of 2010, okay, but the last 4 digits are J910. And it looks like it was hull number 493, built by Scout Boatworks. And so what we just want to do is point out some of the things that we found out. Boat originally came in for a collision that where it got hit in the back. It was sitting at a dead stop, got hit by a truck. So you notice the motor's off of it and the lower end unit's getting repaired. And they also had hit the motor mount here, which, or not the motor mount, but the power pole mount. And we're getting a spider cracking that's going out through all this. So when we pulled the bolts off of the stern, we actually found out that the stern is not overly sized in this area, and it didn't contain a backing plate. So what we're going to do here is we're actually going to use some G10. There we go. Right over here. So we're going to use some, back up a little bit so you can get the whole thing. So anyhow, yeah, so we're going to use some G10, which is fiberglass sheeting, pre-made, and we've cut these up. And these are going to be backing plates inside of here. They're going to actually get epoxy to the hull either this direction or this direction. It's going to give us the same coverage either way, so I just got to decide which fits better. There is a lip of some stuff that was put in back behind this stern eye, and that's going to go in through these holes that you see. And we'll go in, put those in, blob them with epoxy, put them on the back, and then boom, it's going to put a thickness to our stern in this area of load for the power pole. That'll probably be about 1/2 of an inch. This laminate thickness is less than 1/4 right now. I don't know if that includes a core mat material in there or not. I see signs of core mat down here in the holes that we pulled out, so it may include a core mat, it may not, but it's about a 1/4 inch, a little less than 1/4 inch thick. All right, the big thing we wanted to point out to you all, and go ahead and go back a little bit why I'm saying this. Okay, I'm having my daughter pan back a little bit, and to get me in the shot, is that the big thing is we found out the boat was filled with water. Okay, when you tag this or when you find this on Google, you're going to find out that your tag is going to be Scout foam filled with water or something of that nature. Okay, well, the foam inside the hull, okay, what they do is when they manufacture these, I assume that they foam them while the boats are still in the molds. But you have your hull mold, and then you have your IGU or splash for your deck area or below the deck area, and that IGU splash internal liner is got a void between it and the hull. So what they do is they come in and they have some certain foam areas and they foam it. All right, now I don't, I can see back here with the areas that they foamed. They have rise holes that they fill, but that foam is a 2-part foam, and 2-part foam has advantages and it has disadvantages. Quickly, the advantages are if you take on water, you don't sink. All right, that's the advantage. The disadvantage is if the foam takes on water, then the boat becomes heavier and you're carrying around the sea with you. So that over time gets worse and worse and worse. So some things that that you want to do is to make sure your fittings are sealed off so that you're not getting this water. All right, in this case, what has happened, and we're going to show you physically, is that this is the, I'm going to make sure I'm saying this right, this is the starboard scupper. Okay, come on over here, sweetie. So starboard scupper goes right in this area. All right, this came out of here. I'm paying back just a little bit. All right, this is the port scupper that came out of right here. Okay, and you notice that there's no sealant on this scupper from about, well, you can see the average. That's about 1/2 of an inch. That's about 3/4 of an inch. And that's about 3/8 of an inch. So for the whole rest of this scupper where the nut went to, the nut was here, okay? And when I say nut, this nut was on the internal part of this, and that nut had sealant around the flange, and you can see it left a little bit maybe on 3 strands or 3 threads of the, can you please hold that steady? on 3 threads of the actual through hull. All right, so this one, the starboard one, goes here. Now come on down to here. Now you can see here, once again, there is no sealant on this entire length. And that length, I didn't measure it, but it's at least my finger deep. So 1, 2, 3 inches. So yeah, I'd say that corresponds to what we got here. Probably about 3.5 inches thick. No sealant in here. And you can tell the darkness that's here is actual water that's going into the foam. The reason why we address these through hulls is that this foam in this boat is soaked. Soaked so much so that when we pulled the plugs where they actually put the foam and dug out some of the foam in the area, it was a pool of water. So that's the reason why we took off the through hulls. Back up again, sweetie. All right, and I'm going to take the camera now and just talk, and you can slap a couple of mosquitoes if you need to. All right, so this is the center scupper. This would be your drain hole. That's your scupper. And then here's your port scupper on this side. The port and starboard scuppers have the same problem, whereby if you look at, this is the, well, that's the center one, guys. Sorry about that. I'll put that down here too. All right, so the port scupper is this one. This had even less, Ava, you're gonna come back here in a second. This had even less sealant than the starboard one. You can kind of see them side by side. And the, I might have these backwards, guys. I do. This goes this way. Okay, so, yeah, this would be outboard, that's inboard, that's inside the hull. This is what we see out here. These normally have these flanges with, the metal coverings on them out here. Okay, so what you would see is, that's what you would see. You would see that metal flange. And the initial look of the metal flange, it didn't look like there was any leak in there at all. Like when we first looked at it, didn't look like there was anything leaking from there at all. But when we dug into it, actually we found out, yes, in fact there is. So, this port, go ahead and take this, sweetie. Okay, back up a little bit. So this port one, next to the starboard one, barely has much sealant on it at all. I'm not quite sure. You can see it has possibly about 3/8 of an inch of sealant. You can see exactly where it stops. You can see the dark area where it meets this. And then you can see the little bit of sealant that was put on the top. The port side was worse in terms of actual water that was getting in there. But it wasn't getting in as much water as the lower through hulls. So the live well intakes are what we're going to show you last, and those are the most important. All right, now let's look at, we didn't bring up the center scupper. The center scupper was pretty important. That didn't appear to be leaking at all. That was sealed very well. We'll show you that again. Even though it didn't appear like it was here, it's because I cut off the actual distance, the thickness of the piece that extends on here. You can see this is normally much longer. That piece was cut off because the hull, let me take it a second. The hull in this area is not as thick as you can see. So it's more of a glass to glass, IGU to hull match than this is. This is about 3.5 inches wide. That's about 1 to 1.5 inches wide on the center. Okay, so hopefully you're still with us and we're not making you too seasick. We'll pan back and you can kind of see what's going on here. I actually have a light that's kind of assisting, and the hose that's hanging down there is from the power pole. The blue hose, when we pulled the power pole unit itself, the power pole, that blue hydraulic hose snapped off immediately. So I don't know if others have had that problem, but the black hose black tube had no problems at all. I ended up having to cut that. But that blue hose, which we saved the end of it so you could see that there was this white spot developing, and it was obviously a weak spot. It happened right where that black covering, that black mesh covering stopped. So it's probably the Florida sun actually getting to whatever's in that blue hose, but that's what happened there. right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna show you the most important part now, guys, if you've hung in this long, and that is the through hulls. Ava, I'm gonna let you take this and get me in the picture too. All right, so we got the through hulls that came from the live wells. And these through hulls are in the bottom, okay? They're underneath the boat. There's one on the port side. There's one on the starboard side. I believe they're hooked to the live wells wherever they are in the boat, okay? I think there's one forward and I believe there's two aft, okay? Anyhow, it looks in the inside, when it's all put together, it looks something like this. Okay, so that's one. And then this would be your other one, okay? So what we did was we pulled off the seacocks, we pulled off the actual motor units, and we got right down to the actual through hulls. Now, on these through hulls, you may notice on the outside of the flange, they're flange through hulls. They're probably a silicone bronze or brass. It looks like a silicone bronze to me. And you'll notice on the outside that there's two screw holes here. All right. I've been in business since 1985. I have never seen these through hulls, nor have I ever used them. And most importantly, would I ever recommend using these? These have screws in them, screw holes in them for a reason. They're, the factory may be trying to save hours, and it turns a two-person job into a single-person job. So in other words, I can come in on an install, I can come in and I can put this through hole up there, I can drill the holes, put my screws in, and then I can go to the, and then I can be done with that. I can go to the back side of it, put the nut on, and tighten it down. All right, the nuts are these right here. So they're flange nuts also. They go down on the inside. If you can see me screwing that on. All right. So if you were to do this in a normal fashion, meaning you didn't have these two screw holes, you would be doing this as a two-person job, because I couldn't reach my hand around to do both ends at the same time. There's other ways to get around that, but general terms, it's a two-person job, okay? So the only reason you would use these is to save hours. Unfortunately, what they're doing is these through hulls, when we pulled these, I gotta tell you guys, these things, the water was pouring out of here, okay? We probably, as soon as I pulled these, I had to actually go in and get a shower. I had bilge water all over me, and it was pretty nasty. But as soon as we got these two out of there, we knew we had a leak problem here. So if you guys have a Scout boat, if you have any boat for that matter, that has this in the bottom and you know that there's foam in the IGU, you want to do some sort of a yearly maintenance to them, or you might want to do a change out. Okay, I don't have the correct through hull here, but this is a plastic version of this. And if you notice, on this plastic version, there are no screw holes in there. Okay, it's a solid flange all the way around. So the only way water can get into the internal liner would be through, if the water came around this way and then up the threaded area. All right. Instead, with these, you have that issue where the water could go in through the flanged area and up, if you understand, or it could also go directly through that screw. All right, which is what happened here. Okay, on one of these through hulls, you can see. I'm going to bring both of these over to you. So right here, this one in particular. All right, if you go around this through hull, the installation here where there's black or corrosion, that means that there was some sort of a water or corrosive element getting in there, which would be salt water. And on that screw, that looks like it's sealed off pretty well, right? Now, if you go around here and you look, you can see the still shiny bronze. We go around here. Now we go to this side. What do you guys see? Okay, on this side, we actually see that the dark area is right up to the hole for the screws, okay? So the water was going into the flange, to the screw hole, and going up. There's more proof to that is if you actually look real close, there's corrosion right under here. There's two pits that are right there, and there's corrosion that was going on. So this isn't a problem that just happened. This is a problem problem that happened some time ago, and you're actually getting corrosion between the stainless screw and the silicone bronze that was in there, and that's showing you that that one was leaking. All right, we'll go over now. This was the starboard through hull. This is the port. All right, this one was the one that poured water all over. All right, this one here had pretty much a leak where you see this green all the way around from here to there and through the screw holes. So if you look at the shiny areas that are left, there's a shiny area from here to about here, okay? But if you look at the corroded areas, it starts right at this screw. It goes all the way around to there. So this through hull was leaking for some time, and it's leaked a bunch. And this is the one that, when I pulled this out, it was a solid pan of water. So anyhow, that's a brief explanation of what's going on with the Scouts. If you own one, if you own a Scout and you're taking on water from somewhere, you know, the first thing you can start with would be the stern plug. You know, just make sure that that's sealed off correctly. And then from there, if you're still finding that you got water coming in, the inherent problem that I told you is, you know, you can take the best boat in the world. As I said, I've been in business since 1985, and there's been boat manufacturers that have been the best boat manufacturers in the world. I'll use Barry Carroll Marine. I'm going to tell you that, you know, I have utmost respect for that company, but they went out of business, and they went out of business for reasons they know. But from the outside world looking in, you can build the best engine in the world, you can build the best boat in the world, you can build the best car in the world. If you don't finish things off right, you're going to cause some problems. And to me, I just think that the installation of these, if they were original installations from the factory, not enough sealing on here. In fact, my recommendation would be put them in with solid epoxy and be done with it. They're not meant to remove, so who wants them to be removable, right? And I would, and another way I would do this is, come on over here, is I would actually come in, and this is what we're going to do, is we're going to come in where these through hulls go through. We're going to come in and we're actually going to take out the foam about a 1/4 inch back. So we're going to take and remove the foam by about a 1/4 of an inch. We're going to put a solid epoxy putty in there, sand that out, and then that way, if these were to ever leak again, you would not have egress into the 2-pound, or not 2-pound foam, but 2-part polyurethane foam that is injected into the hull. So, and that's going to happen especially on these. We're going to come in and maybe dig out probably 3/8 of an inch on these for the live well, just so we have the same sealed area in case these were to ever leak again. They're not going to get into the foam. The water won't get into the foam, or it's going to minimize the possible egress of water into the foam. All right, so that's what we're doing. Recommendations are, you guys check it out, see if you have any leaks. If you do, start checking those areas. And then finally, there's one last area, and then we're going to end this. All right, we pulled the vent covers off of the cockpit drains here, and we don't know how these are sealed. We pulled them off of the front over here. Another one here. And when they flanged this, the flange for the actual bronze tubing that goes in here, it's actually flanged below the fiberglass, so there's no seal there at all. This one for sure is going to get replaced. You can tell by the rust up here. Usually rust coming from screws, like if you have a stainless screw in here, is an indicator that there's water behind it.